Danny is working on making this live as we speak.
Woo! This is so fun. It's alive.
So it looks like we're streaming live. There we go. We are up and running. And Nate, you're going to be handling everything in the chat, correct?
We got some people starting to pile through the virtual door, I guess we could say. So thank you all for joining us.
Yes, a couple minutes to start.
I was on the start of a webinar one time and I connected immediately. First thing I heard was like a Red Hot Chili Peppers song. And I was like, this is pretty all right.
Yeah, maybe we should have had some kind of like intro music, huh?
Yeah, like, yeah, the Rocky theme or something.
We will rock you, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, we will hack you. What?
We will protect you.
Ah. And I don't know how many 1-hour cybersecurity awareness webinars anybody has ever been to, but we're pretty confident that this is going to be the best free 1-hour cybersecurity awareness webinar ever. So by the end of it, you'll have to let us know how we did on that bold claim.
Mm-hmm. Bold but true.
Bold and spicy.
Mm-hmm.
We got about 1 minute to the top of the hour. Oh, I guess I realized that I never even joined you on the face vidya.
Oh my gosh, there you are.
Here I are.
I like your plan.
Thanks, it's fake. But I do actually, I have a boatload of plants around here, but it's the rest of my tiny little apartment in the middle of being moved and packed and relocated that is the big issue. I'm doing a webinar tomorrow and I don't have a virtual background, so I'm in trouble. Everybody will get to see the big mess going on here. All right, we're at the top of the hour. It looks like some people are still rolling in here, so we're going to give them just a second to get settled. Thank you for everyone that was here earlier on time. I know some calendar invitations are still popping up, but we'll give you just a second to get settled. Oh yeah, that attendee count is growing. I wonder how many people we have watching live on YouTube too. It's going to be fun. All right, Ryan, we're about a minute after, so while everyone's getting settled, why don't you kick us off?
All righty. Well, good morning and welcome to the best free 1-hour cybersecurity webinar ever. So my name is Ryan and I am the lead strategist here at Tsquared. And here at Tsquared, we are a very cybersecurity focused company for all of our clients. And we target small to medium-sized businesses to help them with their security, their network, and everything technology related. That's our goal. And over the last few years, cyber hackers and all that have been evolving at a rapid pace, due to COVID last year and everything, everybody working from home. And we've seen firsthand how it can disrupt our clients' business operations. So today we've invited all of you here to learn about today's cybersecurity landscape, because the more you know, the better you can protect yourself. So we want you to be protected, we want your clients to be protected, and we want your data to be protected. So today, you've heard us a little banter back and forth. We're joined by Shayna Utgard, and she is the success manager at Defenseless, who is our amazing cybersecurity partner. So before we kick everything off, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. If everybody can just make sure they're muted, so that way we don't have any background noise. If you have any questions and answer type things, go ahead and post them in the chat box. And then we also will be presenting a link in the chat box if you want to sign up. It's just a quick little form. If you want to take a minute, we can go ahead and get that put in there in a second. But we're going to be giving away some free things during this webinar, so you don't want to miss out. At the end of the webinar, we're going to send all that to you, everybody that signs up. So if you have any issues with the stream or anything, just go ahead and post in the chat, and we will do our best to get you back up and running. So with that being said, it's a pleasure to host us with you, Shayna, and go ahead, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And thanks, everybody, for taking a minute of your day. I know a lot of people have Zoom fatigue, so I promise this will not be your boring webinar. I'm a New England Yankee, so I talk fast, and we're going to run through a lot of these slides, and hopefully it'll be a pretty good time. Take a second to locate your chat and your QA box, because we will be using those from time to time. So I am Shanna with Defendify. We partner with IT service companies like Tsquared to help layer in some additional cybersecurity services and protections. So today we're going to tell a couple stories. We're going to talk about who the cyber criminals are, what type of information they're after, how they go about their tactics and procedures. We'll share some best practices on how to protect your organization. And just because I personally, got some other Yankees in here. I personally think that having video on while we're doing these presentations is a little bit distracting. So I'm going to shut mine off, and then when we do Q&A at the end, we'll turn it back on, and then you guys won't see me chugging down coffee when I have 3 seconds to breathe. So I'm going to mute that, and everybody can still see my screen just fine. So I'm from Defendify. We actually just won a brand new award from Cyber Defense Magazine for Best Small Business Cybersecurity Solution just yesterday, so pretty exciting. So we're going to start off with some stories here. The first one we're going to talk about is the Anthem breach, and folks on this call may have even been affected. There were about just under 80 million people total who lost their personal health information in this one, and it all started with a phishing email that came into the organization. An employee interacted with that email, and it allowed remote access to the network. An alarming detail is that it took Anthem almost a year to discover that an attacker was even inside their network. We like this story because it's close to home for us. We're over here in Maine. Most people say, where's that? There are only 1 million people in the entire state, but cyber attacks are still happening here. This is a story about the Maine Office of Information Technology. They decided that they were going to use a web-based tool to move a database, and they accidentally ended up putting the confidential private information of 2,100 foster parents on a public-facing website. The statistic at the bottom there is that 43% of data breaches are caused by an insider threat. Later, we're going to cover what an actual insider threat is. This is an interesting one. MacEwan University is a Canadian school up in Alberta, and they were doing construction on campus. They got an email from their construction company saying, hey, we're changing banks in a few weeks. We want to make sure that all of our future invoices are sent to the right bank. And that communication went back and forth between the school financing department. And eventually, the university paid their contractor invoices, but instead of paying the people that did the work, wire transfers totaling $11.8 million were sent to cyber attackers who had been posing as the construction company all along. What's amazing is that crimes this significant can be accomplished simply by email. In a past life, I was a real estate paralegal, so I was processing a lot of different real estate transactions every day, and I wired $2.1 million to a cyber attacker. Same type of scenario, new wiring instructions right at closing, and I can tell you that if you've never been on that side of boom, as they call it in the industry, there is no feeling like that, heart and everything dropping all the way down through your feet. If you haven't experienced it yet, I hope you never do, but statistics say otherwise, unfortunately. So when we talk about sensitive data and what type of information we're trying to protect, the number one thing we hear is, well, I don't store any credit cards. Yeah, that's one type of sensitive data that organizations have, but we want you to think about it beyond that. Think about what type of information you have that you wouldn't wouldn't want to post on a public facing website, like maybe a sales brochure, that would be fine. But you have personally identifiable information. You may have company IP and trade secrets for your own company or maybe some of your clients that you work with, depending on what business you're in. Tax documents for your company and your employees. There's a lot of good information in there. Banking information, wire transfer details, your vendor agreements and price lists. That's sensitive information. Legal documents, contracts, your customer sensitive data as well. So think about the type of information that you store and how valuable that might be or how bad it would be if that got out. And then we can go about figuring out some ways to protect it. Who are we protecting it from? Our cyber threats are coming from a variety of different areas. In the top left, we have our cyber criminals who are causing their crimes to make money. In the top right, we have hacktivists who cause their attacks because they don't like a company or a political party or something they stand for. Anonymous is a great example of that. In the bottom left, and we've been hearing about this a lot in the news recently, these are cyber soldiers from other countries or their state sponsored, and they're going after countries or even public, private, and government organizations to get some sensitive data. And then in the bottom right, these are your insider threats. So an insider threat is an employee, a contractor, an ex-employee, or an ex-contractor who has or had valid access to the network and data. Their actions could be malicious, but oftentimes they just do things in error. Great example is that main story, the story of the main Office of Information Technology. It's just a mistake. It can be really simple to become an insider threat. Let's say I'm going to send an email to Ryan and I start typing in RYAN, I hit enter, I fire the information off. But when I auto-populated Orion, it populated the wrong one. And then I just sent confidential information because I was just simply moving too quickly. It's that easy to become an insider threat. We mentioned that cyber criminals are causing their crimes to make money. This gives you an idea of what data sells for in the dark web. This is not a place that you're going to go to with Google Chrome or Internet Explorer. People use specific browsers to supposedly hide their identity, and there's chat rooms and forums and all kinds of things that are being exchanged. The more information contained in a record, the more valuable it is. So medical records top the charts over and over again. A lot of information in there: name, address, social security number, health information, insurance details for insurance fraud. We've even seen things as crazy as extortion of a CEO of a company because they have an undisclosed medical condition and they don't want the company to know about it yet. So the more information, the more valuable it is. If you store health records, you are a massive target. There are a variety of different types of tactics that these bad actors use. So we're going to cover quite a few of them here today. The most prevalent is social engineering or people hacking. So you're using deception to manipulate people into divulging sensitive information and using it for fraudulent purposes. Rampant form of that is phishing. Over 90% of cyber attacks start with a successful phishing email. Back in the day, this was kind of that shotgun approach. It targeted large numbers of people at one time. You may have received an email from a Nigerian prince with millions to get out of the country. We do still see this quite often. I saw a statistic that it brings in like $700 million a year still. It's crazy. But now these attacks are more evolved. So they're using actual company logos. They look like legitimate emails. They're signed to your friends at Netflix. It's not just as easy as looking for poor grammar anymore. And one of the things that we see a lot is spearfishing. This is the act of sending emails to specific and well-researched targets purporting to be from a trusted sender. So the aim could be to infect devices with malware or convince targets to hand over some money or some sensitive information like logins, usernames, and passwords. A lot of reasons why these attacks are so successful, mainly because there's so much information available about us and our organizations online. So the first step in these spearfishing attacks is an investigation. They're researching on Facebook and LinkedIn. They're on your company webpage. They're learning about the hierarchy and the relationships that people in your organization have. They'll be able to tailor an email that looks like it's coming from somebody who would probably be another employee's boss, or making it look like it's coming, like targeting people based on their job responsibilities or their roles. The attackers are also looking for things like new position updates. They go in, they update LinkedIn, they're really excited. New employees are particularly good targets because they're unfamiliar with internal processes and they're really eager to please. They may make fake profiles and send fake connection requests. There's a tactic called gatekeeper friending. We've also seen people using the information that you share about your company. If your marketing team's doing a really great job promoting you, like in that McEwen University construction example, there's going to be even more information for those criminals to utilize. So for example, like, hey, it's Jim, I'm out at this event and I need a giveaway for my booth. Can you go out and buy $1,500 worth of gift cards and scratch off the back and send me the numbers? But I'm really busy. I won't be able to respond. It's just crazy out here. I need you to do this right away. If you've ever seen one of those gift card type scams, throw it down in the chat. Yeah, we've seen that. We narrowly avoided it. Somebody maybe fell for it, but that's a pretty common one. And the information that you share can be used to target those. Another thing is out of office messages. So it could be a message that, Cheryl's out of office, contact Joe for requests. They can do a little bit of social media research. Cheryl's off in Tahiti, lucky her. So they might craft an email that looks like it's coming from Cheryl that says, I'm in Tahiti, I'm unable to be reached, but I need you to go do this. Or they might send an email to Joe saying, oh, I know Cheryl's in Tahiti right now, but she asked me to have you, do this or this. So there's a lot of information that can be gleaned from your out of office emails. We don't recommend them. We just recommend setting up some email forwarding instead. And attackers sometimes might even need even more information. Pretexting is a form of social engineering where the attackers are focusing on creating a good pretext or a fabricated scenario that they can use, to get little bits of information from their target to either, confirm something about their identity or use that information to stage some secondary attacks. So you may have seen this one. If you've seen this one before, drop it in the chat. Hi, how are you doing? I need your personal cell phone number, or I need you to go to the store for me. I'm busy, but I'm going to wait for you to reply. So you may have seen that pretexting before. Now, once these attackers gather this information, then they perform that spearfish. So even with the most expensive and comprehensive spam filters, these emails are still always going to get through. And when they land on an inbox, the criminals are trying to get you to do one of four things. They want you to fill out a form. They want you to click on a link. They want you to open a file, or they want you to take some type of action, whether it's sending a sensitive document, paying an invoice, initiating a wire transfer, sending some confidential information, buying some gift cards. So the first thing they want you to do is click on a link. A lot of the times these emails are specifically targeted based on your role within the company. A lot of the times we have these kind of digital voicemails where our phone systems will send us an email that says like, oh, you have a new voicemail, and you can click on the little audio recording and play it. So we see those as attack methods, file sharing, payment information. So if you're in any type of payables or receivables type position, then you will get invoices, receipts, scans and faxes is another big attack method. Quotes, price information. We're seeing them utilize the supply chain issues that we're seeing from COVID. So a lot of these are specific based on the role that you might be in. Are you a recruiter? They're going to send you a malicious resume because they know that part of your job is to open those types of attachments. And these requests are usually shrouded in some type of emotion. So fear, urgency, doubt. The first thing I always say to people is to check in with yourself and see if the email that you're receiving is causing any type of emotional response within you. Is it, fear? Did you get a, cancellation notice or an unauthorized login from some weird country? Are they saying that you have, committed tax fraud? Greed is another emotion that they play off of. We saw a phishing attack that had, company payroll information. So people were opening it up, also playing on the curiosity to see if somebody else made more money than them. Another curiosity one is like, I can't believe you would do this type of thing. I saw these pictures of you. Is this really you? And you're like, oh, I did what? Helpfulness really plays off that new employee side of things, requests from their managers. We've also seen scams where people say that the friend is stuck in the country and they need you to help. Urgency is almost always involved in a lot of these emails. So you've got a type of like a time limit or a deadline. Your account is going to be shut down if you don't click on this link and respond in the next 24 hours. Your credit card was declined. Your account's going to be shut down. Somebody says that they're unable to be contacted, but yet they're asking you to complete a request. And then reward and penalty. So, are you trying to avoid a negative consequence by clicking on that email, or are you expecting to get some type of positive reward? I saw a lot of really great examples of this. Phishing is going even further than computers. Text messages are a huge attack method. So, that due to the pandemic, Netflix is giving everyone a free 1-year subscription. That's so nice of you. It's a phishing email. On text message, we call it smishing, SMS. Too many ishing acronyms. So there's a positive reward. FedEx will be delivering your order today. So we've got some curiosity and urgency. Confirm your delivery address. We're trying to avoid a negative consequence. Another one, subject card blocked, with just a bunch of random letters there. You have a new message from AT&T. Well, I do have AT&T for a cell phone provider. It's very easy to look up online, and then you're curious about what that message is, so you click on the link to see what's going on there. Text messaging is a big target nowadays because a lot of employees are able to access sensitive company information from their personal mobile phones. There's no spam filters in place for text messages. They've got really great open rates compared to emails. You got those little bitty shortened links that you don't really know what you're clicking on. And a lot of the times this will give the attackers access to your cell phone, maybe even your personal or your company email, a company network, all kinds of different things. Or they're just trying to get your personal login to wipe out your bank account or gain access to other sensitive systems. And also we see phishing. So another phishing is voice phishing. So these types of scams are conducted by phone, generally target executive assistants, receptionists, people on the finance team, and they might pose as somebody internally or externally, like a vendor or a contractor. The help desk personnel, bank, your lawyer. Someone says, I received an email saying that my yearly subscription for Norton 360 antivirus was successfully auto-renewed for $5,600. I don't know what new features Norton's putting out, but I don't think it's worth $5,600. I would say, first of all, check your bank account, because it says I should call a specific telephone number if I wanted to cancel. That's probably just going to go to the attackers, because on my next slide here, we talk about if an unexpected email, text, or caller asks you to fill in a form, click on a link, open an attachment, pay an invoice, reply with confidential information, you always want to reach out to the sender to verify using a known and different communication method. So if you receive an email saying that Norton is renewed for $5,611.32, you'll want to find the actual number for Norton or your original invoice from when you first purchased it and call on a known number. Check your account, see if there's been an actual charge that has gone through. If not, then just delete it. They know that Norton's a very popular antivirus product, so the chances of you having Norton is probably pretty high. So, they try to get you to respond to that. Yes, one of my neighbors got her email hacked. I got an email that was supposedly from her, asked me to buy her an Amazon gift card for $200. Happens all the time. I am not surprised. So one of the things I always tell you about this is you don't want to respond back to the original email or call a phone number that is in the bottom of that email, because you're probably just responding to those attackers. And some of them are so sophisticated that they have entire call centers set up to handle all of those calls. There's some interesting YouTube videos if you want to go down a rabbit hole some night. Malicious macros and phishing emails have also become a very common way of delivering malware. So these documents are getting past antivirus programs with no problem. The phishing emails will contain a sense of urgency for that recipient. They're trying to get you to enable the macros or enable the content in one of those attachments. When you open that attachment and click that enable button, the malware is going to start functioning in that attachment. So it'll run little bits of code. Ransomware, we'll talk about that. So the phishing emails will also, or the documents themselves, might even contain some instructions on how to go in there and actually make sure that you're enabling that content, because if you don't, then that attack is going to be unsuccessful. And so imagine you're going about your day and all of a sudden you open an attachment, your screen looks like this, your computer is locked up, all your files are encrypted, and you've got a message saying that we have your files, and unless you pay us X amount of money in cryptocurrency, we'll give you a code to unlock your data. We have seen a lot about this, about the Colonial Pipeline in the last couple of weeks. So oftentimes this ransomware is programmed to travel laterally across the network. So it might start with my device and it might move to Ryan's and Danny's and Nate's and infect other computers, servers, backup or storage devices. One of the biggest problems with ransomware is downtime. Even if you have Tsquared as your IT provider and they've got incredible backups for you in place, wiping those machines and bringing them back up takes significant time. And there's always residual lingering effects of that ransomware. Companies can find themselves down for days or weeks at a time. We talked to a company here in Maine a couple of weeks ago, and they just do some type of construction services, and they had their network down for an entire month with a ransomware attack. So just think about what it would cost you in payroll expenses to pay all of your people to keep working, or not working really, the amount of lost revenue. If you couldn't access any of your files, your emails, your customer information, take any payment for your services, if all of that halted for a couple days or even a week, think about how much that would cost you just in that downtime. One of the reasons why this is increasing in frequency is due to the availability. There are do-it-yourself ransomware kits, ransomware as a service available to purchase on the dark web. It's almost like multi-level marketing for malware creators. They're splitting the profits with the people who created that ransomware kit with their little network of distributors. You don't even need technical expertise to launch these things. They have chat, they have guidance and assistance in launching these ransomware as a service kits. It's really terrible what's happening out there. They're also targeting businesses based on the impact of that ransomware. They'll do research on your organization and figure out how much they think you can afford to pay in a ransom. And the new terrible thing that they're doing with ransomware is what we call ransomware with double extortion. So it used to be, I do this ransomware infection. I demand a certain amount of Bitcoin from you to unlock your files and give you the decryption key. But our amazing IT folks like Danny and Ryan, they were like, hey, no, we just have really good backups in place. So we're just going to wipe and restore these devices and you can move on with your merry little day and go infect someone else. We're not falling victim to this. We're just going to, reboot that computer from square one. So the criminals had to go back to the drawing board. Now what they do is they take a copy of all of your data before you get that ugly ransom message. So they take all your client information, your internal IP, any data that is valuable to them, medical records. Remember, those are worth a lot of money. So they'll take a copy of that, do some data exfiltration. Then the ransom demand changes. They say, I've copied your data. You need to pay me X amount of money in cryptocurrency to unlock all of your systems. You need to pay me X amount more for me to delete these files off of my server. And if you don't pay me, then I'm going to release your information on the dark web. And now you have to notify all of your customers and your clients that you've had a data breach. You got to deal with the PR fallout from all of that, or you can just pay me the money that I'm asking for. So this is increasing. It's one of those things where no amount of good backups are going to help you in that situation. So, you're kind of in trouble either way when that ransom message comes up, because there's an alligator pit on either side of those choices. Another thing we're going to talk about here that the cyber attackers are trying to do is harvest some credentials from your employees. This is a little word bubble about the most common passwords that people are using. So you can see a lot of very simple things because passwords are hard to remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, QWERTY password, some simple words in that bubble. So the attackers are trying to harvest credentials. When you click on some of those links in the phishing emails, what might happen is it could take you to a page that looks like a legitimate sign-in page. And they want you to enter your bank account information or your Microsoft sign-in or your QuickBooks login or your Netflix information. And so it will look like Microsoft, but if you look at the actual URL, it is not. And as soon as you type in your email address and your password, they're capturing that on the other side. The other thing attackers are doing is going to the dark web. They're accessing company databases. They're always after these usernames and passwords, whether collecting them directly or getting them off of that dark web. What you see here is some of the largest data breaches that have occurred in history. In the middle is the number of accounts that were compromised. And then on the right-hand side, in every single one, it's emails and passwords that are being stolen. The attackers know that even if you haven't logged into MySpace or MyFitnessPal in a really long time, that chances are that can still get them into some of your more valuable accounts. So they are on the dark web, they pull a list and they find a bunch of Dropbox emails. So they know that if I log into Dropbox using shanna@company.com and a password sunshine123 ! That chances are, based on, as we saw with those passwords, are human password behavior as simple as possible, that I'm probably using that same username and password elsewhere. So what I've used in Microsoft or Dropbox or MyFitnessPal or Adobe or LinkedIn is probably also my Microsoft, my QuickBooks, my bank account, my social media, all of those accounts. And those passwords are recycled across multiple online accounts. Another thing, bringing this back to some of the social media and oversharing and the investigation that the attackers are doing, we give away a lot of information that could hint at our possible passwords, and we have some poor password behavior here. Facebook is very it's a good tool for the attackers, not only in finding information about people, but also guessing some things that could be your passwords. So I want you to think in your head, please not in the chat for this one. Think about your passwords that you use if you recycle them across multiple accounts. And if they contain some of this type of information, like your children's names or your pet's name, any type of, or your spouse's name, significant dates like your full birthday or your birth year or your anniversary or your children's birthday or your birth year, any other types of names or hobbies or your vacation spots or, things that have a lot of meaning to you. Chances are, if you have a son named Caden who was born on June 27th, your password might be Caden 0627. If you get real fancy, you might change the A to an @ sign, or to meet the complexity requirements. The attackers know these types of things. They can scrape your information off of social media and the things that you share when you post like, oh, happy 18th birthday. I can't believe it was just, feels like yesterday I was bringing you home from the hospital, and they know your kid's name and his birthday now. And they have little tools that they can build that will try all of those different variables in split seconds, even doing the, going up a number, adding an exclamation point, changing the A to an @ sign, and they can break into accounts pretty easy. So really be conscientious about what you share. A solution for our password problems would be to use a nice, long, strong password. Complexity is not nearly as good as length. So we recommend passphrases, which can be a bunch of words strung together or a sentence, even with spaces and special characters, capital letters. So here's a great example of a passphrase: protect all our customers, ! But the bigger problem is with recycling. So you want to make sure you're creating a different password for each website. That would be impossible to remember based on the number of sites that we're logging into on the average day. 20 is something that I read the other day. On average, 20 software as a service or cloud applications we're logging into over the course of any given workday. So you got to have some tools that help so that you can create those long, strong, random passwords for all the sites that you log onto, store them securely. All of my passwords look like a toddler just fell over onto a keyboard. So you want to use a tool called a password manager. There are a lot of great solutions out there, both in your personal as well as your professional life. Highly recommend doing a digital detox. These aren't as hard as you might think to use. There are, browser extensions that will automatically plug that password in, but not the one that's in your browser, because that one doesn't have any kind of password protection. Anyone can sit down at your computer and use that, store in Chrome password function. You want to use a separate password manager. And then that way, if any of your passwords are ever compromised or breached, you can immediately go in and only change that one password to a new random unique one without giving the attackers the keys to the kingdom and the ability to access all of your other accounts. So if you want to start a digital detox, I recommend grabbing a password manager. They have apps, browser extensions, and then each time you come across one of those websites that you use the same Sunshine123 password, you can just go right in and automatically generate a new randomized one and go through one by one all of those important accounts and get all of those passwords updated. Now, are any of you thinking, well, what happens if the bad guy gets into the password manager and he would have all of my passwords, right? This is one of the most important tips that I would like everybody here to take away from this webinar, which is to turn on two-factor or multi-factor authentication. So you've probably seen this in the past, like if you log into your bank account from a brand new computer that they don't recognize, you would enter your username and password, and then it won't let you get into the site until you enter a code. So sometimes that code will come to you in a text message, or you might have an app that's running on your phone that will generate a new random code every 30 seconds. Might be a little key fob or a little USB token that you carry around. So multi-factor or two-factor is a combination of something that you know, which is your username and password, and something that you have or something that you are. So the code or the little key fob, or biometrics. So a face scan or an eye scan or a fingerprint or something like that. Something you have or something that you are that is with you. So someone in another country at 2 o'clock in the morning can't log into your accounts. So even if that attacker is able to get your password, as soon as they see they need that second factor, it's usually going to stop them dead in their tracks. There are some things out there about SMS text message codes being more insecure than other forms of multi-factor authentication. Physical hardware tokens or the time-based one-time password apps, the rolling code ones, those are better options. But I would tell you all day until I'm blue in the face that SMS, if that's the only option is to have a text message, it is still, some protection is still better than none. So if that's your only option, tell your vendor you want better, but also still turn that on. So it's just one more hurdle that they would have to get through using that same Dropbox password recycling example here. So even if I used Shanna at company.com and Sunshine123, and they were trying to log into my Microsoft account, what would happen is they would get this approved sign-in request notification and they would go, oh crap, she's got two-factor authentication, and they would just move on to the next low-hanging fruit. So highly recommend that. Email, social media accounts, bank accounts, financial accounts, anything that you really want to protect, make sure that you enable multi-factor authentication. Pro tip, sometimes if you enable it, it'll also keep the spouse out of the bank account. So you heard it here first. They'll say, hey babe, I need the code to get in the license and get into the bank account. And you're like, you should be in there anyway. One of the tips that you have probably also heard, and we think it's important to talk about quickly here, is that as you or your employees start to be able to travel around again, or go, travel for work in airports and hotels, or, go to coffee shops or cafes, you want to avoid connecting to public Wi-Fi systems. When you connect your device to a public Wi-Fi network, it is now communicating with a bunch of strangers. You have no idea who is also on those Wi-Fi connections. They could be running some tools or scans. They could be trying to sniff or monitor your activity. They could be looking for vulnerabilities on your connected devices. The other risk that you have here is that you could potentially be connecting to something called an evil twin, which in my picture is where you grow a goatee and you turn evil. But really, an evil twin is when an attacker sets up a wireless router named the exact same thing you would expect it to be. So maybe it's, coffee shop guest Wi-Fi or, hotel chain Wi-Fi, and they're trying to trick you into connecting to what you believed was being provided by the establishment. But instead, you're connecting to their little device, and they'll have complete control and visibility over your activity while they are providing you with that internet service, unless you have some type of device protection. So a lot of people nowadays do have company VPNs that are now available with this forced digital transformation we've been going through. So that's good. If you don't have that type of protection, we recommend utilizing cellular personal hotspots. You can either do that on your actual cell phone itself, or there are little like bricks that you can buy from cell phone providers to have your own internet service. So one of the best policies is not to allow your company devices to communicate on public Wi-Fi. And we got one more little tip here, and then we're going to go into kind of what a well-rounded cybersecurity program looks like and some recommendations here. Our last one is a study that was done by the University of Illinois, and they dropped about 300 of those USB thumb drives, the little removable storage devices. They laid them all over the campus, and they wanted to see how many people would pick them up and plug them into computers. Almost half, and some within minutes of being dropped, because people were really curious what's on them, or they claimed they were trying to get them back to their owners. There are a few different risks that you run if you allow USB devices at your organization. The first one is that there could be all types of malware that is installed on those USB keys. Randomly plugging them in could put you at risk of an infection. The other thing is that you'll run a higher risk of insider threat. So an employee, maybe not even trying to be malicious, they want to do some work on the weekend. So they take some of the, your confidential information or files off of your server, they put them on that USB key, and they bring it home with them. And it accidentally falls out of their purse, or they leave it on the table in a coffee shop. We know that someone's going to pick it up, and from the research, half of the people are going to plug it into a computer. So if there is sensitive information on that USB device, you could find yourself in the middle of a data breach. So we recommend that organizations disallow the use of USB thumb drives. You can do that with a human resources policy, or you can actually disable the use and plugging those into your computers. But we also understand that there are groups that we work with that have to use these. So there are different ways to use encryption, and you'll need a special code to be able to get in and view the information that's on them. So definitely take a look at your USB policy. So Ryan, are you sleeping, or are you still with us?
I just woke up. I'm still here.
Okay, perfect. Why don't we tell our nice attendees about our gifts?
Yes. So we have some great giveaways today for everybody. So one of them is our free cybersecurity kit. We've given everybody 3 free tools to sort of jumpstart your cybersecurity journey. Along with that, we are also giving away kind of a recap of this wonderful presentation that Shane has been giving, and packed full of information, kind of like the highlight points. There is a link in the YouTube chat as well as over here on Zoom. So if you just want to fill that out, just a quick little name, email, and what your company name is, and we will be at the end of this sending over some more of those goodies and getting ready to set you up with your cybersecurity starter kit. And it is a no obligation, no payment, absolutely free, FREE. So go ahead and just click and sign up, and let's get you going.
Lisa says, can we trust that link? LOL, someone has been paying attention.
Hey.
Yes, that is a good link. You will probably also get an email from us later about it. And at the end of this session, we're going to tell you about specifically what those 3 free tools are to help you out. But we thought we'd throw it up here now. If you've learned a lot in the beginning part of this webinar about different, recommendations on recognizing phishing, or, sensitive data, or things that you want to incorporate in your policy, policies. We're going to be given an awareness webinar takeaway sheet. So it kind of summarizes some of the key points from the first half of this. And then we're going to run through quickly in this last half what a well-rounded cybersecurity program looks like, and then give you some tools to get you started on implementing that well-rounded cybersecurity program. So if you want to jump on that awareness webinar takeaway sheet, share it with some of your colleagues or the kids. I don't know if you've seen your children's online habits, but I have 2 teenagers in the house, and some of the stuff that they do online just scares me. So one of the things nowadays that we hear all the time, a huge challenge in our landscape, is people that say, well, I have antivirus and firewall. Isn't that enough? It's what I've always had. Why do I need more? So this is a challenge because these cyber attackers are altering and editing their malware so frequently that it is difficult for traditional antivirus companies to keep up. The way that a traditional antivirus software works is it takes all of the new malware that's been detected by the antivirus company, it brings it down to your computer and it says, this is everything that we're aware of. If you see it come up in any way, we want you to block it. So these attackers are going in and they're making these little changes to the code in that malware all the time. So it becomes impossible for that antivirus company to keep up with that speed of all of those little minor changes. And their dictionaries are always out of date with all the new malware. 4 to 5 new malware samples that are launched every single second. So by the time we're off of this webinar, it's going to be like over 15,000 new malware samples that have been released. So when they make those little changes, they send it in an email to someone, they start interacting with it, they know that there's a chance that antivirus is not going to pick it up and detect it. 350,000 new malware samples every single day. And that's not even talking about what's called a 0-day vulnerability, which means there's been 0 days since it was announced that this is a security threat. Like nobody even knew that this existed. It's just a brand new piece of malware. So it's virtually impossible for your traditional antivirus software to keep up. There are some antivirus software that is a little bit more advanced that will look for signs and suspicious activity of things that could signal that there is a security incident going on, but it's not enough to just rely on that antivirus and firewalls. You need to have multiple layers. So you want a layer of technology beyond antivirus and firewalls. You want to have a layer of culture, of employee awareness, so that your teammates and your staff know how to spot those phishing emails that are coming in, that you have a process to verify any type of financial request before just sending it out. And then you have a solid foundation of policies, procedures, and plans. We like to talk about it in a defense in-depth type approach. So I like this visual of like layering multiple pieces of Swiss cheese on top of each other. Each piece has little holes throughout it, but if we layer enough of those pieces of cheese, hopefully we're able to stop anything from going all the way through those different layers. So we call this defense in depth. If we think about having an attacker at the top of this little funnel here, and our attacker is trying to get down to our sensitive information or hold us ransom for some type of Bitcoin, we want to have multiple layers of protection and take a strategy that looks like this in protecting our organizations. So the first thing, if we went into the doctor and we said, gosh, doc, I'm not really feeling well. If our doctor just immediately started prescribing a bunch of medications and ordering surgeries without doing any tests first, we'd probably be like, malpractice much? So we start our cybersecurity posture off the same way. We're going to run a risk assessment. So we're going to take a look at what types of sensitive data we store, where we store it, how an attacker would come and try to gain access to that, what protections we have in place, how devastating it would be if that type of information got out, or if we had a ransomware attack, how bad it would be, how long it would keep us down, and also how much trouble we're willing to go through to protect our data and our organizations. I always think about it in a physical security context. I can put an alarm system in and have security cameras and motion sensors and have all these different types of physical protections. Is it possible that somebody could come and smash my window and grab, jewelry out of my storefront? Yep. impossible? I can't really do a lot to protect against that. Could they mission impossible down in through the ceiling through an air conditioning vent? Yes. But not likely, but could happen. So we go through this type of cybersecurity risk assessment to identify where the threats are coming from, the likelihood, the impact, and what we're willing to do to prevent that. Our next step then is putting in some preliminary technology, monitoring, scanning, filtering tools. So we start off by doing vulnerability scanning, finding out if there are known holes or weak entry points in our networks, our computers, our websites that we could be able to fix, weak passwords. Your IT professionals probably have some pretty good email or spam filtering that's going on to try to make sure that those attacks don't even reach your inbox. If we want to take it a step further, we could actually hire a ethical hacker to attempt to break into your network, just like the bad guys would do, and then provide a report back that shows, details of how they were able to get in, screenshots along the way, what they were able to accomplish. That way we do that and simulate that before an actual bad guy does, and then, give you some recommendations on how to harden that in the future. You can also check and see if you have compromised credentials available on the dark web. So if this is something that you are interested in finding out if your organization has any employee exposures, or if you want to know if your work email address has been compromised at all, definitely sign up for that free cybersecurity starter pack, because we can tell you about your dark web credential exposure. And then doing ongoing monitoring. So if one of your employees' credentials are popping up on the dark web, you'll know about it right away, be able to go in and have them change that username and password. You can also look for vulnerabilities in your websites, malware injections and things like that. So most people don't immediately think of their website as a vulnerable spot, but it definitely is. And then our next piece in this filter here is having proper authentication, user training, and policies in place. So let's think about how these attackers operate. I'm going to try to attack Defendify, so I'm going to do all of my research on LinkedIn. I see here that Elise is the operations manager, so I might craft an email with a malicious PDF that's going to run some code that allows me to take over her computer. So I do a PDF attachment with a phishing email that says, hey, I need you to look at this payroll information, because that's probably her job. I don't see anybody else on the LinkedIn that does payroll stuff. So I'm going to send it and make it look like it's coming from one of the bosses, and hey, take a look at this. So we hope that Elise has received really good guidance on how to use technology. We have clear policies in place so that she knows, what our acceptable use policy is, what our policy is on verifying those types of requests. She has received notifications about cyber-related topics, scams, vulnerabilities. So she's getting all those recent threat alerts. Hopefully our email filtering keeps that email from reaching her inbox, but if it does make it all the way through, then that next line of defense is making sure that she's been trained. She's had, monthly ongoing regular phishing simulations, building up that muscle memory and recognizing that it's an attack and staying on high alert. And she's also had all kinds of ongoing reinforcement. She's got monthly awareness training videos that talk about the types of threats that are out there and the proper authentication policies and how to protect herself from a cyber attack. So because of all of this ongoing reinforcement, she says, you know what? I'm going to give the boss man a call and just really quickly verify this. As soon as she realizes that it didn't come from him, she's not going to open it, and crisis averted, right? Hopefully we stop it at that point in the filter. But if we don't, and she opens that attachment and that code starts running, hopefully all of our devices are patched so there aren't any vulnerabilities to exploit. And then we have advanced malware protection that is capable of noticing that something bad is trying to happen and be able to stop it, on that last step endpoint level, and then we can avoid that crisis again. But if that isn't the case, then the malware does start running on her computer and a ransom message pops up or encrypts all of her files, then we want to make sure that Elise has a clear incident response plan, step-by-step instructions on how to shut down her computer, disconnect it from the network, in what order, who to contact next about that problem, how to take really good detailed notes about what happened along the way if there's ever a forensic investigation. And then we'll have good backups in place so that we're able to wipe and restore that machine. And then, as a worst case scenario, having a really solid cyber insurance policy so that we can recoup any of those types of financial losses, any downtime, and any of the associated costs that go along with it. So, multiple layers. We want to do the best that we can to prevent an attack from coming all the way down to, our users and being successful, but also, having a contingency plan in place if something bad does inevitably happen. I have car insurance on my car, but I still try to not drive like a maniac and, be sober and wear my seatbelt and drive the speed limit and all those other good types of things. But I do also have my insurance policy because I can be the best driver out there, but, there's always someone else, especially with the use of, third-party services and vendors and, other types of companies that we're interfacing with on a regular basis who might have access to our data. We can do everything we possibly can to prevent a cyber attack, but sometimes, it's on somebody else. So if I'm a great driver and somebody else hits me, still want to make sure that I have all those types of things in place for, the right side of boom. And we want you to really think as well about the way that you look at your cybersecurity program internally. It's not a one and done project. It's not something that you do once, you turn on the, whatever new technology solution, and then we get to walk away. It's an ongoing posture that everyone in the organization needs to take from top to bottom. I talk to a lot of companies that are like, I don't want to phish the CEO of my organization. Well, I understand one side of it, but also that's who the cyber attackers are phishing. So we want to make sure everybody top to bottom is on board with that you have a really good culture of strong cyber defenders, and that it's something that's looked at and revised on an ongoing basis. And then Ryan, I think we'll turn it back over to you and then we'll open it up for some Q&A.
Yeah, that sounds great. So some of the things that you're going to get after today's webinar will be our free cybersecurity starter package. So with that is a cybersecurity health checkup. So that's going to be kind of our starting point. We're going to see what you have, what you don't have, where you are in the cybersecurity posture, and kind of be able to give you guidance as to what to do from here after that assessment is done. The second one we have is the vulnerability scanning and testing.
It's going.
So there it is. There it is.
I was like, I clicked it.
The network vulnerability scanner. So I know COVID's been tough for everybody. People have worked remotely. Then things start to clear up, and everybody goes back to the office, and then then things get worse again, and we all go back home. So the network vulnerability scanner is a must-have. It's going to identify if you have any holes in your network, or if any gaps and any essentially vulnerabilities that anyone else can get in that we don't want to get in. And then the last one is our threat alert system. So that is going to keep you up to date in any attacks, incidents, stories, basically keep you aware of what's happening in the cybersecurity world, the goods and the bads, mostly to keep you aware of what could happen to you and how to remediate that. So I know a couple people signed up. Go ahead, take this time to go ahead and fill out the information quickly, and then we can open up the Q&As. And then after this, I will personally be reaching out to everybody to go over some of the results. Maybe I need to gain a little bit more information from you to make this happen. But we will set everybody up with these 3 free tools, no obligation. And if you happen to see this after, because we are going to post this afterwards, this also will apply to you, and you can always just shoot me an email.
And hi, live on YouTube and LinkedIn people. Even if you're watching this later, you can still come back and sign up for those 3 free tools. So we've got a couple of questions coming in the Q&A. Go ahead, folks, if you've got some questions to have answered, you can type them in there in the Q&A. We have a couple of ones. Should you coordinate your audit logs and correlate and create regression analysis to see what are the more likely threats to curtail? That's all part of that first step there in, when you go to the doctor's office and they do all the tests first before they start diagnosing. Absolutely, you want to take a look at your audit logs and see, what types of threats that you are currently encountering, because obviously you're going to want to protect against those. Find the more likely ones. That's all part of that risk assessment. So, finding what the impact would be. Is there something that, could be an actual attack? Yes. What's the impact of it? How much would it, affect our organization if it was successful? How much trouble am I willing to go through to protect that? So absolutely. And then same person here asked, how do you stop a botnet? So for people who are a little not so much up to date on botnets, basically, I'm trying to think of a very easy, not super technical way to describe this, but having malicious activity that is performed by a bunch of different computers that are all, or different IoT devices. It could be your security cameras take over the world, or your toasters. So using those devices to launch an attack at another organization, I would suppose would be a relatively simple way to describe that. Danny or Ryan, you got a better way to describe that?
Sorry, excuse me. I was dying for a second there. No, I think I think you explained it pretty well. Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, a robot network is basically, it's the short version. Botnet is a robot network. So these devices can be used, to infect other devices with malware. They could be used for denial of service attacks, like, a bunch of pings to somebody's website until they shut it down. So that's, kind of a robot army, basically, if you think about it like that. So to answer the question here, how do you stop that? There's a bunch of different things that you can consider. First of all would be to make sure that you have all of your software, your applications, your devices completely up to date. A lot of those botnets are using vulnerabilities to launch their attacks there. So making sure that you're applying all of your patches. For those of you who don't come from kind of a technical background and are just joining us, to learn about cybersecurity, that message that pops up that was like, updates have been applied, you need to restart, and you're like, oh, you snooze it for 4 hours, you want to snooze it for like 4 years. Those are patches. They're extremely important. Make sure that you are applying those updates as quickly as possible, because malicious things like botnets can use those vulnerabilities. If there's a hole in your jeans, you want to get it patched before it spreads or gets worse. You can also, to prevent a botnet, you can really have a lot of good monitoring in place. Like the breach detection and response system will look for botnet type activity. So you're looking for, like, for example, failed login attempts, or multiple repetitive pings to a website, like big spikes in certain activities. Any of those types of signs that a botnet attack is going on outside of your normal your baseline kind of statistics, as far as, my dog is going nuts right now. I don't know what his issue is. You can also have different website and web server protections in place as well, and have just monitoring on that, all of that network activity. All right, so we answered that one. We got another one. Can you explain how the VPN works when logging in on a public Wi-Fi? Would a mobile hotspot I purchase use off of my phone for my laptop be more secure? Yes, that would be great. If you are providing your own internet service, so for example, like, if you have Verizon as your cell phone carrier, you could get a little, like they call them bricks, like Wi-Fi bricks. You could either get one of those dedicated bricks, or you can turn your phone into a mobile hotspot and use your data from your carrier. That way that you are the one that is providing your own internet service, and nobody's able to sniff or monitor your network activity. So that would be a great option, either standalone Wi-Fi service, or using the hotspot on your actual cell phone. VPN, really, I kind of like to describe it as like kind of a cloak of invisibility as far as your activity on the network, so that the attackers can't, watch what you're doing, if that makes sense there. All right, well, we are coming right up here on the top of the hour. Danny or Ryan, do you have anything here for the people that have a hard stop and want to jump right off? Do you have anything you want to jump in there?
No, I think everything's been great. If there are any more questions, I know we might not have time to answer all the questions, but if you have more questions, feel free to shoot me an email, rgoodrich@tsquared.it, and then we can go from there. I will be reaching out to everybody that has filled out the little form to get the free tools that we're giving you today. So I'll be reaching out to you then. So if there's any further questions or anything, you can feel free to shoot them to me in an email, and we will definitely want to address everybody's questions, concerns. Thank you, Nate, for throwing that up there.
Yes, awesome. We've had a couple other questions here about masquerading attacks. Was there one in specific, like one specific example of a masquerading attack that you were looking for, or just kind of more of a general type question? Because that could be kind of wide. We'll see if we get a little response there. Just general. I would say overall, to kind of protect masquerading attacks, user training and awareness is a huge thing. Being able to look and see, if a masquerading attack is really where like somebody's imitating somebody else's identity. So they could be imitating like, an email system, or trying to build any type of trust or get some more information. So having clear user training and kind of like we did in the beginning of this webinar, talking about reaching out and verifying those types of attacks, having clear policies in place, a lot of that user side of things. If they're masquerading as, an executive at your level, there are a couple of like technology solutions that you can put in place to have, you can have domain spoofing monitoring that's going on. You can mark emails that are coming from an external sender. I highly recommend separating your internal communication from email altogether. So for example, if you use Microsoft Teams or Slack or Google Meet or whatever it's called now, I can never remember. If you use some type of communication method outside of your email service, if Danny's the boss and he's sending requests out to myself and Ryan, and we know that he is always going to send those types of requests through Teams in a direct message to the two of us, asking us to perform a task, and then an email comes in saying like, hey, it's Danny, I need you to go buy gift cards or something like that, we immediately know that that's not Danny, because he would have sent us the communication through another type of source. Again, like if they're masquerading and they're actually able to gain access to any of the sensitive accounts, goes back to things we talked about earlier with strong password health, multi-factor authentication, making sure that there's kind of a authenticity authorization check there before they're able to log into any of your sensitive accounts. You can do other types of things like, monitoring for suspicious activity, monitoring for file attacks, monitoring for email account takeover type situations. If an attacker goes in and tries to change some rules in the employee's inbox, and, forwarding all of the replies and, deleting everything that was sent because there's actually been some business email compromise, that's, an option as well there. So some answers. So I see a couple people have been dropping off. Haven't seen any new questions come in here. Anybody have anything else that they want to chat about, or anything that was this helpful for you? You can throw it down in the chat if you learned some new things that you'll take away from this webinar. All right, well, I think we've answered all the questions that have come in here through. All right. Thank you guys for all. Definitely going to change some of the passwords. Awesome. Password health and multi-factor authentication. They are some of the best things that you can do for better cyber hygiene. And you'll be surprised. You'll get so many, like little pings and things that will say, that somebody's trying to log into your account at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's a little crazy. So definitely creating unique passwords for all of your systems. Is there a way to determine if your device or computer is infected if you're not that techie? Yes, Tsquared. All right. Anything else? Anybody?
Yeah, I just want to say one last thing, that if anybody has questions like that was just asked, yeah, feel free to shoot us an email, give us a call. We definitely want to help everybody out. And just so everybody knows, there is no such thing as being too small of a business for security and technology help. You don't build a building starting with the roof, right? You start with the ground floor and you work your way up. So, it's better to get a technology partner sooner than later. And we're here to help you, and hopefully these free tools will give you guys more information about your cybersecurity posture.
Awesome. I can't stress it enough how important it is to have an ongoing technology partner, because it's much like your health. If you just kind of wait until everything gets way out of control, then the costs are a lot more expensive. The surgeries take longer to recover from. You're down. You guys all know those types of people. Maybe you even are one yourself, that we kind of let things go for far too long, and then we turn around and it's much worse than if we had stayed up on it a little bit at a time, and doing some of those like small maintenance things, and really staying ahead of those types of issues. It's the same thing with technology. A lot of people, if you've never used some type of managed service provider, IT provider before, it can be looking at it like, well, it's a new monthly bill and things have been a little bit crazy. But just having those little bits of proactive activity, if your managed service provider is doing a great job, like, you shouldn't probably really have to call them very much, because they're doing all these little tweaks and keeping everything just up to date and running optimally. And that is the goal, so that you never have to think about technology or security, and things just run the way that they should. So definitely find yourself a good managed service provider. If you have that type of person internally, hold on to them for dear life. So, all right, everybody, I think that's it for us today. If you have any questions, you can email my friends over at Tsquared. Sign up for the 3 free tools, no obligation. They're just here to help. And we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month.